Hi, welcome back. So in this particular video, we're going to talk about some common mistakes in pitching. Now, I have just a little bit different approach to pitching, and this will kind of explain why I focus on certain common mistakes, okay? Probably because I look at research in storytelling, I look at a pitch as an opportunity to tell a story. And a lot of really smart people want to overwhelm their judges to show off how intelligent they are with a bunch of facts and figures and all sorts of confusing stuff. And I really don't see that as an effective way to conduct a pitch. You want to condense how smart and intelligent you are into something that can be relatable to anybody, right? Because these are your potential customers, these are the potential funders. So that's the first mistake. The second mistake is remember, there's only one way to do a pitch, and it's my way. I guarantee success to you every time. Why did I do that? Because I want to explain very clearly, there is no one right way to conduct a business pitch. It doesn't exist. However, and this is unfortunate, there's a lot of people that write fancy books and all this other cool stuff saying that their way is going to guarantee success. I hate to say it, there is no guaranteed successful way to do a business pitch. It just doesn't. It's not out there. And if anybody tells you that, run away from them. They're poison, they're con artists, they're just trying to take your money. Okay? So this is my approach, and this is a way that I have observed seems to work over many hundreds of iterations across 6 years. However, I fully acknowledge that there are other ways of doing this. So that's my caveat. So what I emphasize, and a lot of, we talk about capital, right? The most common form of capital that we think of is financial capital. Financial capital is like money that you have to invest, pay employees, etc. It's what you've got in the bank. Some people also talk about human capital. That's your intelligence, your education, your skill sets. Other people describe social capital. That's who you know and what they can do for you. Right? These are kind of the commonly described forms of capital. But I think for a business pitch, the most important skill set that you have is communicative capital. In other words, how well can you tell a story that gets other people kind of activated and motivated to work with you to help you along the way. Okay? So let's talk about some other mistakes that I see in business pitches. The first is the aspect of timing, and this next one actually kind of ties into it as well, but timing. Okay? You need to be what we call a nascent entrepreneur, N-A-S-C-E-N-T, and I've written it up here. A nascent entrepreneur, if you look at a classic textbook definition, that's kind of like 3 to 6 months before you get started, up to about 3 to 6 months after you kind of get the business running. But, that's a textbook definition. I'm not sure it's all that applicable in reality. What we think of normally for nascent entrepreneurship is, and Henry Mintzberg describes it this way, imagine that you're making a bowl, with like a pottery wheel. The clay is still malleable enough that it can become a plate, a cup, a bowl, or any other shape that you wish. But you've got the clay there, you've got the wheel spinning, you got your hands ready to go, you're still forming, right? It'll probably be a cup, but it could still become a plate. Like you haven't actually solidified it yet. That's what we normally think about nascent entrepreneurship. And the timing to conduct a business pitch and enter a business pitch competition is normally the nascent stage of entrepreneurship. However, let's say that you're looking at expanding what you're already doing. This could also be defined as nascent entrepreneurship. Let me give an example. When I lived in LA, I consulted for this guy, and he had a poke restaurant. And poke is kind of like, it's like Hawaiian sushi. They take the fish and they marinate it in lime juice overnight and all that kind of stuff. And he had one location. It was making a lot of money. Okay? But he wanted to open a second location. He knew he'd make money, but he didn't quite have enough money to open that second location. Because again, things in Los Angeles are expensive. So he was also a nascent entrepreneur, even though the first location was already established and would not be defined as nascent. He was a nascent entrepreneur because he wanted to move into that second location. And that was kind of the crux of his pitch. I'm already successful here, but I want to move here. The timing is now. The time is right. Let's move to this other one. The next thing I want to talk to you about is potentiality. Okay? A good pitch, and we'll use this poke restaurant example again, a good pitch has potentiality. Potentiality means a desire to move beyond present capabilities. The absolute worst pitches that are out there are those people that get up and they show off how smart they are. Hey, I'm smart. Hey, I got this great degree. Hey, I've got this great business. Hey, look at me. Yeah. That's completely the wrong thing. Because the audience is going to look at you and like, okay, where do I fit in here? You've done all this great stuff in the past, but what are you going to do tomorrow? And as a good pitcher, you need to effectively communicate that. Again, the guy that had the poke restaurant, he said, these are the things that I've done. I'm happy with that. He's established what he's doing. But he was very, very explicit. This is where I want to go in the future. Okay. Now, the next thing that I want to talk about to you is a common mistake is inclusivity. You need to include your audience in the pitch, and you need to include your judges in the pitch. Okay? So, again, using the poke restaurant example, he explained that there were two things that were going to happen when he opened that second location. First of all, he was talking about opening his restaurant in a neighborhood that did not have a lot of dining options. And he kind of looked at it as a way to share Hawaiian culture with people that were unfamiliar with it. That was kind of a social movement. And he related to the judges. Don't you remember that, when your culture wasn't exactly that mainstream, now you're in a position to help me do the same thing that you've done. Same thing that you've done. You see, he's including the judges in there. And he talked about, all right, this is an opportunity for, if you invest, this is how you can benefit financially from working with me. See, he's including them in there. Okay, that's huge. Okay? Bad examples of things to do. Okay? There was one guy, and I just couldn't believe he did it. He talked about in his business pitch that he was doing a weight loss supplement. And he said, hey, we all want to lose weight and we all want to look healthy. I mean, look at this guy. He can afford to lose a few pounds. One of the judges was a little heavy. Don't do that. Okay, that's a way to make your judges angry. Okay, yes, it's including them, but don't do that. And another thing that I tell people that are getting ready for a pitch competition is do just a little bit of research on the professional and intellectual backgrounds of the people that are judging you. I remember doing this one pitch competition when I was living in France, and smart guy, kind of a revolutionary type personality. He wanted to have a financial product that was an alternative to banks. The idea actually seemed like there might be something to it. But the way he presented his pitch, he starts off, and some of you may know who Robespierre was. He was a French member, part of the French Revolution, responsible for the terror. Hundreds of thousands of people, if not millions, died under his dictatorship during the French Revolution. A horrible man by any measure, right? He starts off his pitch and he says, you know what, Robespierre didn't go far enough. I'm going to finish what he started. I'm taking down those banks. Well, some of his panel judges were bank presidents. So what do? They cross their arms like, really? I mean, they put their pencil. I mean, it was a disaster. And I told him not to do that. What can you do? Okay. So think about who you're pitching to and make sure that you include them. Another mistake that I see is people fail, and we're going to talk about that in our Hegelian dialectic approach to problem solving. But a lot of people fail to adequately explain what their problem is, why it's an important problem, and how whatever they're doing solves that problem. Now, not every problem is an economic one. It can be a social problem. I mean, there's lots of different governmental problems. There's lots of different kinds of problems, but you need to explain what your problem is and why should your judges care, and be very explicit about how what you're doing solves that problem. And a lot of people make that mistake, and I'm not quite sure why. Maybe they assume it's implied or it's tacit or the people figured out. Don't leave it to the judge's imagination. State this very clearly. And if you only have 30 seconds, I would focus on that problem and solution statement right there. I'm kind of going along with problem and solution statements, a couple other mistakes that I see. Pitches that are not coherent. Okay? They take, and normally in the West, we think kind of linearly, right? A goes to B, goes to C, goes to D, all the way down to Z, right? We kind of think in a linear order. You want to make sure that your pitch is somewhat linear, right? And I've seen a lot of pitches that people are smart, but maybe they're nervous, they can't quite get it, and they'll say like A, and then F, and then Z, and by the way, I forgot C and D, and then here's G, and their pitches are all jumbled, right? It would be the equivalent of opening a book and reading the chapters in a randomized order. By the end, you'd be very confused as to what happened. Okay, so I would avoid that. And in fact, even if your entrepreneurial process was kind of jumbled and non-linear, when you tell the pitch, kind of translate it into such a way that's linear. Let me give an example. I was working with a client, and she was somebody that loved to play tennis, but as she got older, she kind of had a wrist problem. So she'd made like kind of like this, I don't want to call it a glove because it didn't have fingers, but it fit on your hand, and then it kind of braced your wrist. So when you played tennis, it kind of gave you that stability so that she could play tennis again, right? And basically what she said is, she was playing tennis, she hurt her wrist, she couldn't play tennis, then she invented the glove, and that helped her relive kind of her childhood dream of being a tennis star. That's kind of the way things actually happen, because once she invented it, she realized that she was kind of fulfilling a destiny that she'd imagined for herself as a little girl. But see, that's kind of confusing because it's B, C, and then A is the order. So what I coached her to do, and it actually worked out in terms of the pitch, is to talk about ever since she was a little girl, she'd wanted to be a tennis star. Then she took up her lessons, she hurt her wrist, she got this kind of glove with the wrist support, and she was able to continue living that same dream. See, that makes sense. It's A, B, C, D. So try to make a coherent pitch. Make a pitch that makes sense to the audience, okay? Even if you've got to kind of reorder the story a little bit, okay? Additionally, you need to, and I call this fidelity, making sure that it resonates with the worldview. Again, do like the guy at the poke restaurant talked about. He made sure that some of his judges that kind of started cultural movements, that he was extending a cultural movement just like they did. That makes sense. Okay? Don't do like the guy that talked about how he was going to be the next Robespierre. Okay? That doesn't resonate with an audience's worldview. So you need to have a pitch that has fidelity, or one that is faithful. Great. So what we're going to talk about in the next video is we're going to start establishing kind of the show. How do you give proper background in your pitch? And the next video is establishing that setting. Okay? Great. Well, I hope you enjoyed this video, and I'm looking forward to seeing the next one. Oh, and by the way, if you like this video, give me a like. Down here, push that like button. I've got a subscribe logo. Click that. If you have any questions, post them down below. I usually respond within a couple of days. All right. Thanks.